This is day 1 of the July 95 7-day retreat in Springwater. Two things I forgot mentioning last night in the opening talk. One was that both you and I, sitting in the meeting room for a private meeting, need to keep some track of the time. There are 2 clocks in the meeting room. They're not the easiest to read, but we can, both of us, maybe approximately remember when the meeting started and 10 minutes after that when it ends. Just saying this so that it's not just considered my responsibility to end this meeting. It is not. It goes a little bit over, that's all right. It goes a lot over, maybe next time to take a shorter meeting or to have the 20 minutes. It worked all right this morning. We also forgot to mention last night that don't wait to take all of your meetings toward the end of the retreat. It doesn't work that way. It's important that people also take meetings right in the beginning, which was the case this morning. And about sleep. Didn't say anything about that, even though that seems to be our favorite occupation. I don't just mean night sleep. But having a lot of us been trained in all kinds of traditions where it is discouraged to sleep a lot, encouraged to wake through the night, through breaks. Just to mention, it's all right if one is tired to go to bed, to rest, to sleep, particularly if it's possible to sleep, because sleep does regenerate the body in a marvelous way. So not to think it's shameful if oneself goes to bed and other people are not there, maybe sitting or walking, to see if there can be some unfolding independence of what other people are doing, or to see how tied we are to it, tied to conform with our image. We want to be seen this way and are afraid we're going to be seen that way. Can that come into awareness and diminish in that awareness? If one is wide awake at night, it's all right to be here in this room or walk, sit on the bench, up at the pond. If one is tired during the day, it's all right to take a rest during the day, provided it's not the work period. Some people prefer the night for sitting, others don't. Don't feel any pressure, and feel the pressure that's there internally from all the past programs wired into this body, mind. As for a talk, there is a rest period after work, even before the first sitting period. Talks are very intensive affairs. To talk and to listen, and both of it is arduous. Pay attention, to watch what is being said, to listen to it. And it's good to take a rest before then if you can. The best rest I get usually is the one after breakfast before the talk. It's amazing if there is some real sleep, how refurbished the body wakes up. It's not waiting for that sound to be over, but listening. Now. And the simultaneous bird song. This cool air breezing on the right. Or is it the right? That's thought. And thought is there too. Breath is there. Can you feel it? Breathing. Maybe a deep breath. Shallow breath. Are there ideas in the mind how the breath should go? Can there be awareness of the ideas trying to control the breathing? We don't even know what breathing is. Usually we deal in words and concepts. And what an amazing occurrence when a concept like breathing yields to the directness of this. At the beginning of each talk, of each retreat, we usually talk about listening, a new quality of listening to ourselves, to each other, to the wind, and birds and insects, to the pains and tensions and pleasures, to the thoughts and dreams. Can there be a new listening? Everything about us is so habituated. We're so used to ourselves, so accustomed to the way everything works. So habituated to just live in thoughts about ourselves. And it may not seem possible for a new listening to dawn this moment of not knowing what this new listening is, but the voice, the words are there, aren't they? They're heard. And the twittering of birds is heard, isn't it? It's there. Does it take a special effort to hear it? You may say, yes, it takes a special effort because I wasn't listening at all. I was just trying to listen to what you're saying, not aware of the breath, not aware of the birds. But right now, let go of what was. Right now, woo, woo, woo. Poor imitation. And maybe holding the breath for a moment and then exhaling. Well, however it is, how is it? It's there, isn't it? Does it take a physical, mental effort to just for a moment be there? The sounds, the sensations, the thoughts, the words that are being said, are they heard? Are they heard just as sound waves? That's what often happens. Sound waves reaching the ear, this is how it seems. Maybe not understanding the meaning of some of them or most of them. Maybe yes. And in understanding the meaning, what does that mean? Having heard these words before or having read them and therefore a memory recognition, which so easily says, yes, I understand what you're saying because I remember these words. I remember their connection to other words. Or can there be a deepening of the listening as this talk unfolds. I'm listening too as this talk unfolds. I don't know how it's going to unfold. Let's hear it. Let's see. But it does unfold out of an open space of not knowing and yet looking. Looking and listening. Take those words exchangeable with each other. Looking, listening, experiencing, sensing. All the senses, including intellectual understanding, which is also one of the senses, openly working together as one listening, one being here. In the midst of hills and valleys, under a clouded blue sky, wind and sun. So, is it possible not just to hear the sounds and feel the sensations, see the sights, notice the thoughts, but also an openness to wondering what it is all about, in essence, in truth, in depth, this moment. Not just trying to remember the words, commit them to storage so they can be brought up at a convenient time. This is how we have learned to listen a lot. We were really indoctrinated to remember what was said in school, by parents, church. Committed to memory. And remember this at all times, or at the right time. But here it's not so much, can I remember this? But what does it mean right now? What do these words that are being said, that come out of this organism, point at? Because they're not just said to hold a talk. There's nothing prepared for a talk like this. It comes out of the fullness and openness and, if you will, out of the emptiness of just being here, looking and listening together on a cool Sunday morning. You could say, well, what should I look at? What should I look for? What should I listen to? These are our conditioned questions. When this body-mind opens up, as it were, everything is there. Needs no effort to attend to something. The birds, the breath are there. And is the meaning of the words there? What they point at? We'll have to see. We also talk about authority during the first talk of each retreat. It is so important, so vital to be clear about this tremendous tendency of human beings like you and me to create authority or to be imbued with authority, starting with the parents, the older siblings, the teachers, the priests and ministers, the television, media, newspapers. So much authority imprinted upon this organism. What to believe, what to follow, what to be afraid of, whom you can substitute for what, whom to be afraid of, whom to follow, whom to believe. And with this indoctrination or inculcation that happens to all of us, goes a very natural protest against it, revolt against being commanded, made to do things, prevented from doing things. If one has children observes children, one notices every little child goes through this period of really revolting against the parents with 1,000 no's a day. And then the battle between the generations. And what's the result? It may be a little bit different for each one of us. But alongside the revolt against authority, or the submission or seeming submission to authority, it can never be trusted, our submission to authority. Given an occasion, it may erupt into revolt, rebellion. But along with submission and rebellion toward authority goes also a deep longing for it, for the assumed safety of it, the comfort of it, comfort of believing one doesn't have to think or do or respond for oneself. It seems easier to take someone else's word or guidance or protection together with others, and it becomes even more comfortable or meaningful. A lot of us submitting to an authority and sharing both the authority and the submission, a common system of following in which we believe we have safety. All of this preventing standing on one's own, beginning to look and listen on one's own out of the present confusion, not knowing what to believe anymore, and yet wondering what is going on, feeling, sensing, tasting and touching confusion. Confusion being the fusion of many views, many authorities, many beliefs. Which is the true one? What is the true opinion? The true idea, the true system? That's how many of us start out looking, wanting to find the true belief, the true idea, true religion, true political system. From following to following to following, and in between a breakup, disappointment. And the lack of security when our system begins to break or crumble, for whatever reason. Each one of us has experiences of our own in this regard. I remember this image comes up right now, walking with our child. He was just a beginning toddler at the time. We had a split-level home with many little staircases. Holding on to him, going upstairs and downstairs. And at one moment noticing how tightly this adult hand was gripping, holding the little hand. How tight, much too tight. It's not necessary. I wondered at the moment, is that necessary? This tight grasping of this little hand. And in realizing it, wondering about it, the big hand loosened up. And something happened, not just to the little hand, but to this little organism. It was able to walk on its own. His one hand was on the railing, which was there. He didn't withdraw the hand right away, but there was sort of an instant strengthening of that little organism by this adult hand letting go of its fast grip. So even though we yearn since our days of childhood or wombhood, yearn for some safe enclosure, safe spot where someone else takes care of us, tells us what to do, what not to do. And even though there's also rebellion against this condition, is it possible to be aware of it all? The yearning for authority, the rebellion against authority. See it all as conditioned movements of this body-mind. And in the beholding of it, also hear the birds. Feel the cool breeze of wind. And wonder whether either reflex is needed, either the yearning for submission, for belonging, for authority, or the rebellion against it. And to begin experimenting with walking alone, on one's own 2 feet, as we say, opening up one's own 2 eyes, listening with one's own ears, inwardly, outwardly, in a new way, not seeking for confirmation, or authoritative instruction, but really wondering if it isn't at all possible to see and understand for oneself. Maybe beginning with confusion, darkness, denseness, stuckness. We recently had a group discussion in which stuckness was one of the recurring themes. What does stuckness feel like? Not just as an idea. This is how the body-mind goes about a question usually, to try to think about it, think it out. And it's a part of this organism to think and imagine, has a lot of important functions, to think and to imagine. But when it comes to psychological states happening right here in this organism, just thinking about them, one realizes is not enough, it's not sufficient. It is a sort of a split-off activity imagining ourselves, how we are, how we could be, is different from experiencing what we have called stuckness. Maybe we can't even find it in the beginning. We've been talking about ourselves as being stuck. But what do we mean? What do the words refer to? In this organism, in this body-mind, or mind-body. What do I mean when I say I feel stuck? Can we, in the wake of such a question, stop, look and listen inwardly, openly? Not just with ready answers which can form relatively easily in the brain. Well, stuckness means this and this and this, it's because of that and that and that. But what are its direct manifestations, if there are any? We have to look, stop, inquire, listen. People tell me that they often go to body workers who may put their hand very quickly on a stuck spot, a spot where it feels dense, knotted up. And of course we have words for an energy being blocked. An energy blockage, can one feel it directly, or does one stick with a word that somebody else gives one? Because the only place to verify it is right here, not just to believe someone else's diagnosis, to feel for oneself. And not instantly want to get rid of it. Of course, instantly we want to get rid of it. One can see that movement, that reflex. I don't like it, I want to be free of it. But freedom only is an idea too. Isn't it? Do we know freedom? Freedom from wanting things to be different, and therefore the fullness of being, whatever's there, in its totality, openly, spaciously. The feeling of blockage, of tied-upness, of pressure, often the chest is pointed to the heart, or the head, or both. Maybe the belly, hard, stuck belly. How does it feel? Has one ever put one's hands on the spot, maybe during sitting? Put the hands on the belly or on the heart, chest. Maybe in this sitting room, not just move around from one stuck spot to another. Go to the dining room for that, or find some place where one can gently be in touch, but a warning, not just in touch with this stuck spot, because it is part of this universe. It's not apart from it, not apart from the humming motor and singing birds and the breath flowing, albeit maybe haltingly. In spite of all the stuckness, as long as we're alive, there's breath, there's breathing. Not just from the nose through the lungs to the belly, but this whole organism seems to be breathing all over. So, what I'm trying to convey is to be in touch with the knots, the pressures, the tightness, but no need to completely zero in on that to the exclusion of everything else, because there's enough space for everything. To be there as it is. And how is it? Getting away from the words, the diagnosis, the description, the history, into what? Let's find out. So were these authoritative statements just made? It is for you to see how they were received. They were not meant this way. I'm just looking together with everyone else at what is happening in this organism, which at times feels so out of balance, or most of the time out of balance. How is it? And to give some gentle attention to it. Not exclusive attention, but gentle, opening attention, which does not exclude this amazing environment in which we live, and all the other human beings who are there with us. Insects bumping into the glass. Sometimes we say, okay, I understand what you're saying. I have to become my own authority. But I wouldn't put it that way. There's so much in that which we could go into. I have to become my own authority. Again, finally I found the ultimate authority, myself. This open, free moment of listening, without preparation, without prejudging or already having all kinds of ideas about it, needs no authority. It is alive on its own and has been for beginningless time. So does the thought come up in the mind, well, if you, Toni, are not an authority, what are you? Often, particularly in the past, it doesn't happen so much now anymore. People are trying to argue with me, trying to argue me into accepting that I am an authority. I better not deny it, because that is double speak, I used to be told. But if you ask me right now, this moment of sitting here talking, listening together in this bright hall of coolness, what are you? Who knows? Insects humming, birds singing, bodies moving, breath flowing. Which is very shareable, isn't it? It's common. It doesn't divide you from me as some known entity. which we're going to be questioning all 7 days, this known entity of you and me. And the question, well, what is your relationship to us, if not that from authority or teacher to student? I haven't used those words in a while. I don't know what this relationship is. In being here together, there isn't even relationship. We're all together. No space in between, no distance. Trees, do I have a relationship to the trees? And I first have to think, well, I'm here and the tree is there, and what's my relationship? What could it be? What would sound nice and inspiring? But here's the waving and quivering of leaves and caw-caw. And a deep breath. So what's related to what? It's too complicated to, how do you say, to disentangle. It's one entangled aliveness. But looking up for a moment or imagining you coming into a meeting, group or individual, then maybe a nice way of putting it verbally would be the relationship is one of respect. Seeing again. Respect. Seeing again. Seeing for the first time each other. Can we do that? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Usually doesn't work that way, because what is remembered comes in the way of being there freshly with each other. What you said a year ago, or what you didn't do, meanwhile. Respect meaning seeing each other freshly, listening to each other, trying to find out about each other, whatever comes up, in a broad, spacious, deep way. Not only focusing on one problem, although it may take a lot of attention, one problem. But where does it happen, this one problem? Right now, couldn't we agree that it happens in wide open space, without even time? If I think, well, when did my problem start? Then that thinking places it in a thought-out framework of time. And we believe too much into these thought-constructed systems, which are convenient, this is how we live, but they have no reality other than thought construction, with tremendous, noticeable effects that thought construction has on the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the intestines, the liver, the gallbladder, the muscles, vocal cords, blood rushing up to the neck and head at one angry thought, or freezing, feeling immobile at one fearful thought. Not to underestimate the power of thought on this organism and the power of this affected organism to generate thoughts about itself and its condition and the world and the other people. And how not to underestimate is to observe it, to be witness to it as it happens, with amazement, because I thought I had control over my thoughts. I thought I generated them. And yet here they come. I didn't want to generate this thought, but here it is, getting me all upset, uptight, angry, resentful, or deliciously happy. One thought, not intended. Here it is. Who is the producer of it? It comes, it goes. Find the producer of the thoughts. Because that is already a question picked up by the intellect, isn't it? Or is it taken to be a direct inquiry? Where do thoughts come from? What is there before the next thought arises? This moment of just birdsong, cool air, a few words, and a lot of silence. We will end here for today.